Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to take a few minutes to answer the question that's put out by trainers like Robert Hines in terms of, what represents behavior. Explain what behavior represents. And I talk about how that word is being hijacked in the dog training world by those who advocate a relationship problem between dogs and owners as a learning-based exercise. And whether it's a balance trainers, such as pictured here with Hans from Shield Canine, the anti-dog trainer who's engaging this back and forth between himself and Robert Hines. Again, I put lots of videos about when things, come off the rails, so to speak, in terms of process, in terms of defining influence and control within a process. But this goes into this whole thing about behavior. Again, I talk about that word being hijacked and being, brought into a superficial process that represents trainers who motivate dogs to respond in the middle of a relationship problem. Okay, while assuming that those responses, okay, represent that the perceptions of dogs are changing the right way, leading to diminishment of unwanted behavioral issues. And the question is, well, what are they using to, what's the criteria they're using to establish that? Like what is it? And this goes to the question again. I have pinned up front and center at the top of my Facebook page. I encourage you to go check it out. I call it the question. It's a statement at the same time of the century in terms of, within the framework of superficial responses, what is the criteria these trainers are using? Well, there is none, okay, because they're not identifying the criteria in terms of, influence and control within the parameters of dogs as social animals in terms of relationship. This goes into, how those two core ingredients are reconciled through a intentional interaction-based method that both reveals, okay, the current state of the relationship, reveals the state of mind of the dog, but also change itself. Okay, how those moments of agreeableness, okay, through through a intentional interaction-based method, those moments affect the dog's overall decision-making process, and by way of diminishment, okay, of unwanted behavioral issues. So we get this whole thing about what is behavior. Again, understand that these trainers, whether they identify as balance, force-free, play, drive-based trainers, okay, they're hijacking that word. They're bringing it into this, framework of superficial responses and trying to elevate those responses up as meaningful. And they have no basis to do that because, again, the criteria that I talk about is totally absent there. Okay, they're not dialed in that way. They're not dialed in the relationship that way. They're not dialed into the dog's state of mind that way. And so, therefore, that word does not belong. Okay, typically dogs are moving around the training environment, responding, and that's all they're doing. Okay, they're going through the motions. You might see a dog doing a great sit, a great down, a great come, a great stay, like 5 minutes in, where trainers are using treats, they're motivating dogs in a very superficial way. It doesn't mean whatsoever those responses, represent anything beyond just a response. And no different. Just think of a selfish child. Sure, you can motivate, okay, a selfish child to clean up their room with something that they really want, and they can be highly motivated to do it based on, say, a brand new Xbox game. But the question you have to ask yourself is that what defines their attitudes getting better once they become selfish? So understand the dot that's missing here in the dog training world is actually defining, attaching what, again, this word behavior, how the dog connects to behavior, behavioral issues in terms of relationship. And this goes into this whole thing about what is behavior. Well, it's an expressed state. Okay, just like as a child becomes more and more selfish, behavioral issues escalate. Okay, so dogs as social animals, you'll see it as they gain more and more control in the relationship. Okay, the perceptions start to change the wrong way. You'll see behavioral issues escalate. Okay, it's no different. Everything becomes contaminated. That's why I talk about stinking thinking. I talk about being dialed into the relationship that way. These trainers, whether they're balanced or force-free or otherwise, are not dialed in that way at all. So they bring that word behavior into the narrative. Doesn't belong. Okay, because everything they're doing is superficial. Okay, the dots don't connect. So all to say, the question that just like I say, the question of the century is front and center on my Facebook page. again, goes to the heart of the matter. What is the criteria? So I'll say Robert Hines, he's talking about defining behavior, but he's not even dialed into the social aspect of the relationship. It's the same thing. Those two core ingredients, they're missing. So these trainers understand going back and forth all day long. Okay, you're spinning your wheels. Okay, anyone who's invested in in identifying this way, I would encourage you to take a step back and ask the questions that need to be asked. And there's a reason why I draw into the parenting example. I mean, it lines up almost perfectly. And, so the dog training world is off the rails. So understand that is behavior. Okay. You talk about behavior, it's about relationship, it's about an expressed state. And again, it's also about your role. Okay. When it comes to changing perception of dogs the right way. Thanks for watching.